Okay, David, we are live. Okay, welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock, a live stream for today, December 8th, 2020. We have two very exciting companies for you today. The first one is KABN Systems, KABN, TRWRF on the over-the-counter. We got David Lucatch, the CEO. I know a lot of you have been very excited for KABN. I mean, the stock was up basically doubled yesterday when we announced this. So let's I'm sure this is going to be very worthwhile. And again, for those of you new to our program, our goal with Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock live streams is to bring you companies which we believe have 10x to 100x upside potential. So these are companies that have three things in common. They're number one, they're going after big multi-billion-dollar opportunities. Number two, they're at key inflection points right now in their growth curve. And number three, they have multiple catalysts in place which can really increase that shareholder value, increase that stock price with news flow, developments, all the good things. So those of you following our program for a while, you know that we've had in the last year, a number of stocks that have increased between 1,300%, 2,000%. Just in the last few months, we've had a bunch of stocks that have gone up, 400, 500%. And of course, yesterday we had two stocks that doubled, including KABN. But this is just the start because, when we get involved with a company like KABN or anybody else, they're on this program because we think that this thing has 10x upside potential. So the format for today is David is going to do a quick presentation. Then we're going to open up for Q&A, and it's your questions that make these events special. So please ask your questions. We'll pop them up on the screen. David will answer them, and so check out the presentation. Ask your questions, and then decide for yourself if KABN Systems is going to be our next 10-bagger stock or more. So with that said, David, take it away.
Well, thanks, Jack. A pleasure to be here and welcome everyone. We're excited to be able to present KABN. There's a lot of new information that literally came out this morning, and we'll be able to share that with you. But to start, KABN is a company that is in the business of verifying, managing, and monetizing online identity. And we'll explain a lot about that today. Really, what we're here to do is empower you to be able to manage your identity, online identity, and digital assets so that you're in control, you're in charge, and you're profiting from that. And we have four great products, and this is our suite of services. And I'll get right to it. Our disclaimer and our presentation is available online, and we ask that you read our disclaimer, obviously. But let me take a few minutes to describe KABN North America. We want to talk about who we are. What is self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials? How are governments supporting individuals as they use online identity and data? I'll talk about our services in the addressable market, how we empower users to create value, and how we generate revenue and create stakeholder value. Let's talk about who is KABN North America. And there's a lot of information because this is a new area. We focus in self-sovereign identity, the ability for a user, and we believe it's a basic human right for consumers or individuals, not corporations, to benefit from the ownership, management, and control of their personal data, identity, and verifiable credentials. This is really important, and this will be the theme throughout this discussion. Our team is made up of experienced industry veterans, an average of 25 years or more. We've all had success in our businesses, and we've taken that to KABN. We're a publicly listed company, my apologies, on the CSE, and our symbols on the OTC and FRA, we're looking to upgrade those in the near future. We've got massive reach, early adoption, highly scalable. Let me be clear about this. SSI, or self-sovereign identity, is relevant to 100% of the online market, not 10% or 20%. Everyone online will need to manage their identity in a go-forward model in the next year or two. Powering SSI, we are a steering of the Trust Over IP Foundation with partners like MasterCard and IBM and Accenture and Aetna and USAA. And we are also now a founding member of the Lumetic Exchange that focuses on healthcare and patient data. Our business is built to have low CapEx and low OpEx. We're built for streamlined efficiencies. And we have a unique business and revenue approach. By empowering users to manage their identity with our verified identity products, biometrics, and SSI, we can create one-to-one marketing relationships with third parties and others to create value. We have no fakes or no bots in our system. Everyone in our system is a known user. And lastly, we think data is the new gold. Data is the ability for consumers and ourselves and our partners to create value. Our executive team and directors, again, a great team of people. I've worked with many of them for many years, and they're a great team that has lots of experience in different factors. And you can go onto our website and see their bios. And you know, I'm impressed and proud to work with these people, and I hope you will be too. So let's talk a little bit about self-sovereign identity. You know, and we can talk about these, but frankly, the market is massive. It's really a massive market because it covers everyone. Everyone online, you know, will need to have self-sovereign identity. And, you know, this comic is really funny because it's old. It's from the late 90s. But on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. They don't know who you are, what you're doing. You know, you can pose as anything in gaming. You want to be, you don't want to deal with your gender or your identity or who you are. It's really easy to do that. But as we consume more and more services online, and we do more and more online, it's going to be important that both you're able to identify yourself and other parties that are providing services know that you are who you say you are. And that self-sovereign identity solves that problem. It like having a physical wallet and key ring, but digital. All the things that you would store and prove who you are in the real world is handled through SSI platforms. And we have one that we believe is engaging, free to use by the consumer, and adds value. Now, here's the backstop. Governments and standards are moving towards supporting this. In Europe, it's GDPR. In California, it's CCPA. In Canada, we've got something called PIPEDA. Australia, we've got the CDR commencement and other regional opportunities. Governments are saying that users, not corporations, need to manage their identity and data. This is really important. You know, we all heard the horror stories about data theft and identity theft online and what happened with companies like Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. SSI solves that problem, and we believe we are a leading company in this space. So the time for self-sovereign identity has come. We believe we're in the right place at the right time, and all the data supports this. I'm not going to go into detail here, but we're really at the inflection point of where things are happening. You know, the early adopter chasm has sort of, you know, been gapped, and now we're moving into early majority. We're at the right place at the right time and supported by industry and, as I mentioned, some of the major players. We also use something called Trust Over IP. We're a steering member of Trust Over IP with companies like Accenture, you know, Province of British Columbia, MasterCard, IBM, LG, CNS, Accenture, as I mentioned, and people like Aetna and USAA. Trust Over IP is defining the way the architecture will work for SSI, and we're a steering member of that organization. Let me talk to you about Liquid Avatar, because this is the really cool part about our business. We've taken self-sovereign identity and verifiable credentials, things that you would keep in your wallet, access and identity opportunities, and we made it fun and engaging. So Liquid Avatar lets you be who you want to be online. We have a suite that allows you to create your own avatars, and we have services with some of the leading artists that allow you to purchase avatars, really cool avatars by comic book designers, and you're able to, at no cost, to create self-sovereign identity and customize icons that fit your interests and profiles for each facet of your personality. You might have one for work, one for investing, one for business, one for school, one for gaming, one for family, one for friends. You can be who you are in the digital world, and you can share what you want, when you want, and with whom you want. It's at your control. So really, when we go back to the addressable market, what does Liquid Avatar do and what markets does it cover? Well, the answer really is, what markets don't we cover? We offer biometrics. Everything is biometrically controlled so that we can prove you are you. We have full service digital wallets, self-sovereign identity. We offer data services, and we offered verified identity. And those create credentials, and those credentials create engagement. We can engage in the education, financial services, e-commerce, community, government and services, passwords and access, no username and password anymore. In the future, it'll be a verifiable credential. Entertainment, online services, work and trade shows, travel, family and friends, sporting events, and it covers 100% of the addressable market. So we have the opportunity to succeed in emerging markets with partnerships and opportunities that we can power users to do what they want when they want online as easily as they do in the real world. Now, this is a bit of a big slide, right? So these are all the things that, somebody like Sarah would do online. Once she creates her avatars, she can biometrically control those. She can put them in wallets, keep them safe, make sure only she has access. And she can now create verifiable credentials, basically credentials that are connected to her identity on the blockchain with our ecosystems that make sure only she has access to these services. It's really important, next level. Now, if you wanted to, access a workplace and had a credential, only you could get into that workplace because you'd have to scan a card. Now you'll have these verifiable digital credentials in your digital wallet, and you can store thousands of them. And what's cool about our platform is we're sort of the app store of verifiable credentials, right? You can store credentials not only that we create, but others in the industry create, and you can manage and store them through our platform at no cost. This was a big news this morning. We have announced a consortium to power COVID-19 verifiable access and identity credentials. This is with leading companies like Loop Insights, Lumedic, Trip Experts, the campus agencies, and others. We are now creating the ability for healthcare providers to issue credentials, people to hold those credentials, and go to venues which can then verify a credential, an entire ecosystem. This is now not only going to be viable for vaccination and diagnostic testing, but it can be used for a whole host of services that we explain. Imagine that, once you get your vaccination or you have a test, that you can easily get into places with credentials that you can prove, one, that you are who you say you are, and two, that you have the right to present a credential that you've got this vaccination or whatever, and enter that facility. So this is really important. Our job, we believe, is a part of it is to start helping people getting back to what they want to do. If I say, if you had a test or a credential, what would you be getting back to? Fill in the blank. We're able to empower the systems to do that. Now, how do we create revenue? It's really quite simple. Our customers, our clients, our consumers, they all get our services for free. And in return, we're able to we never sell or rent their data, but we're able to bring them offers and opportunities that make sense to them because we have a one-to-one relationship with them and they are known users. Again, we never sell or rent data. We bring them offers to their apps that they can take advantage of. And when you look at our targets by generation, these are massive numbers. And, even if we're getting a little bit off every transaction that they do, because we have the right people bringing offers to the right groups, the numbers can be enormous. We're estimating, obviously you can see for these numbers, that we're estimating that revenues could be significantly high per user. And again, our market reach is 100% of the online market. Our revenue drivers are simple. Liquid Avatar, our KABN Cash, which is our catch-all for all our revenue programs. And we are approved in Canada and in Europe, and we are now looking at the US. We started that as well for offering our own Visa debit card, our own banking services. We offer bank-grade verification for identity in combination with biometrics to ensure that you are you. And we can translate those into user services. And from those user services, we can create revenue drivers. Again, our position is pretty simple. We have a short, mid, and long game. In the short game, we're already there. In the mid game, we're looking to create stickiness for users using our services, and the long term, it's retention. So we've really built this out over the last 3 years, and we started by putting our own money in first. So when we came to our public company, we had no debt. We had a little bit of trade debt, but no debt. We still only have trade debt. We have no short or long-term other types of debt like convertibles or loans. We really run our business on low CapEx and OpEx, so that we can ensure that we can create revenue, large revenue and value in the long term. Again, our milestones are pretty simple. We did our RTO in Canada on June 10th, 2020, and we're already in product launches. And we expect in Q1, we'll start launching our COVID-19 program with additional consortium members and all our other products. So we believe we're built for success. And if you look at some of the other companies in the space, what's really important is the retained value of the users. So a company like Credit Karma, sold for over $7 billion, I think it was $7 billion US, and their average revenue, we estimate, and again, we have the data for this, is about $8 per user, and their valuation per user was $125. So not only do we drive revenue for users on sort of an ARPU basis, we also have the ability to retain value on an enterprise level of our users. So, if I could sum it all up, we talk about reach, and that the online market for us is 100%. We have a unique business approach. Our solutions are built to empower users, generate revenue, and create stakeholder value with high growth and scalable solutions. And we have an outstanding team that we are continuing to add to, who have proven success in the marketplace. So I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to your questions.
David, okay. Let's take some questions. Let's take some audience questions. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks,
Okay,
Jack.
perfect. We got everything working. Okay, so I'm going to start off. First of all, I think there was a question about what's the number of shares outstanding? Like somebody's trying to understand what the market cap is right now.
Sure.
After the funding.
Oh, well, prior to the funding, it's just under 67 million shares. So it's a reasonable basic. Diluted, I think we're in the mid 80s, and we'll right now with 1 million at 15, we're going to add another 6.6, so it'll be around 72.
Okay, so you were talking about roughly, in US dollars, roughly 20 million valuation of the whole business. So which is kind of in the world you're in, that's basically like for private companies, that's almost like a seed stage in venture capital for something which has, the type of opportunity that you're doing, and let's see, the traction that you have. So okay, so that's one. So wondering what the market cap is.
I can comment there, Jack, just for a second. We've done this multiple times. This is our fourth public company, and in our previous successes, we've done the same thing. We've had stocks start out at an early stage, and again, past performance is no indication of future value. We all know that, but we've done this a number of times where we've had stocks sort of in the 10-15 cent range to start. And one of our companies went to over $3. Another company went to almost $4, and one went from basically to $1.50. So we've seen this before. We like to start out where we can provide value to our shareholders, our stakeholders at an early stage, because we believe that then they can support us as we grow.
Okay, so that's I think that's very important for the audience, is that there's a track record, which is good, that you've done this before. You've had multiple winners in the past. So I look at it this way: is that the probability is that it's going to happen again. Again, we're already seeing some traction happen with the stock right now. So what in terms of, I guess, David, what I'd like to ask you is, because what's going to make this stock, and this is what our audience really probably wants to know, is what's going to make this stock a $2-3 stock, in the next, let's call it 12 months? Like, what is the path to get there?
Well, first of all, again, the only thing I can tell you about tomorrow is the sun will rise in the morning and set in the afternoon. I mean, beyond that, it's really difficult. What are our goals? Our goals are to continue to build our platforms and roll out our products and programs, and we've seen excellent traction. And what's really interesting about this program, Jack, is normally you have to educate a market. You have to spend a lot of time and energy educating a market about what you do, but the market's self-educating. There's so many organizations talking about self-sovereign identity and creating value that what the stake in the ground that we've put in, the market is moving towards us. So I believe that we can achieve the goals that you've mentioned by staying focused on our plan, again, having a great team, and delivering on the things we're going to deliver. And as we increase this consortium, as we've announced today, you can imagine the opportunities in all the service areas we've talked about. So our goal is to focus on getting critical mass, because we believe that will drive value and revenue and obviously shareholder value.
Mr. B is asking, how does KABN plan to deal with the Canadian government going digital with all forms of ID? Is this true?
Yeah, Canada has already announced, Ontario is particularly announced what's called a DIS, Digital Information Services. And as part of the Trust Over IP Foundation and other organizations, we're already talking to various governments about what we do. Again, governments are talking about having their own wallets, own digital wallets. But that's cool for us, because your digital wallet for a government could fit inside Liquid Avatar. So we don't see this as a competitive position, but a collaborative position. So we're already in those throes now of talking to governments.
Okay, here's an interesting question. Cannabis stories. Now, this guy's a very cynical investor, which I like. So he's asking, how scalable do you think this is? I mean, I'll answer. This is incredible scale. You got how many people on the planet? 5 billion people? 7 billion?
Online. Let me take you back to a story of 1997. My first internet company developed the initial payment gateways for the Canadian banking system for e-commerce. So, and I remember, people telling me no one is ever going to shop online. Let me tell you, no one is ever going to shop online. And so we believed then that there was universality in application, and the market's 100%. All we have to do is take a small slice of the market to be extremely successful. We don't have to make the market. Users are already online, and more services are going online. We're just creating the intersection point between a consumer and a business. If you think about most organizations, they're either B2B or B2B2C. That's the way we like to think of enterprises. We're exactly the opposite. We're C2B or C2B2B. We start with the consumer. So there's lots of opportunity to be successful here. And a lot of opportunities for scale.
So you were doing online payments in 97. So you were like a very, very early, you're like a pioneer. So this is, I guess the David, how early are we? Because like 97 was just a little bit early, and here are we going to be a little bit early, or is this going to scale? And I guess this leads into this guy, Dan is asking, what do you see of adoption? I guess how fast can this scale?
Well, how many people are going to get COVID-19 vaccinations or being tested or diagnostics? Let's talk about those numbers. Even if it's, and we hear the stats, but even if it's 40% of the North American population, we're still talking about 240 million people, right? Or maybe 200 million people, let's just say 200 million people at the end of the day, 40, 50% of the population. And so at the end of the day, our market's quite sizable today. So our partners in our consortium alone, forget anything else we're talking about, already are dealing with, hundreds of healthcare providers and hundreds of venues. So we've got ready-made markets already in play with our consortium. So, and our technology is effectively built. So it's not, we can scale quickly. While others are talking about things, we're already coming to market with technologies that work.
Okay. So what, I guess what I'm trying to figure is what is the point where, there's kind of a tipping point where this can become mainstream? Like how many users would you need to have in the system before, it starts to really scale? Is it, we're talking, 1 million, 2 million? What's the number?
Well, we already have agreements with organizations that have well over 100 million users. So we've already set those plans in motion. So I expect that we'll see significant numbers starting in Q1 and moving from there. So we've already signed deals with gaming operations with companies like Loop Insights, MTRX in Canada, and who's now working with tons of venues. Lumetic has 51 hospitals and 1,200, physician care facilities under in their parent organization. Trip Experts dealing with thousands of over 1,000 tourist boards. Campus Agency, one of our other partners, deals with over 2,000 campuses in the U.S. So we're already going to be accessible to massive amounts of users. So we don't think adoption is an issue because everyone will need the tools to manage their online identity. Period. End of discussion.
Okay. Yeah, because I think like 1 million is kind of, that's considered in the, just in the VC world, when you have 1 million users in an app, that's when, it actually becomes worth, it could be worth $1 billion at that point. It's
right.
That's sort of the standard. If you get to that number, things really, go big.
We can reach that quite quickly, but again, as we start rolling out, we'll report our numbers quarterly. And if they scale fast enough, we might report them earlier.
Okay. Okay. So I guess one of the questions that I want to ask is like, what kind of, in terms of news flow milestones that we can expect over the next couple of months. I think one of the key things, I guess, to really track is going to be the number of users, to see the progress, the acceleration rate of it.
Sure. Well, I think we have a number of different KPIs, right? And one will be users, 2 will be consortium partners, 3 will be networks. I mean, there's a number of different milestone events, and we're already preparing for those today. We believe we have strong opportunity for news flow, and we understand that, again, not our first rodeo. We understand the demands of the shareholder market, and we want to make sure that we're providing continuous disclosure to our shareholders and stakeholders.
Okay. Let's see here. So while it is asking, will KABN reach out to airline companies and event planners who are edging? I don't know, trying to get digital ID proof of vaccinations, or
right.
I guess they want digital ID. So
right. So we're already in discussions through our partners at Trip Experts for the travel and leisure industry, and again, we've just announced our first consortium partners, but there will be many more to come.
Okay, and we've got a couple of people asking about if you can explain the partnership with Loop Insights further.
Sure. We actually announced this initial partnership in August of this year, so this is not a new relationship. Loop has done an amazing job with their contact tracing and other services to ensure things like the NCAA bubbles that they just powered were 100% successful. You always want to add a but, and the only but I can add at this point in time is we're layering verified identity credentials and verifiable credentials on top of what Loop is doing to make it more secure, more private, and more valuable to both the user and the venue. So there's the added layers that we can bring to Loop that we think will be value for the partnership. The other side too is because we manage known users on insights and information about users, we can give Loop, their clients and their customers, the ability to help consumers manage that data. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I might refer people to look up the release on I think it was August 25th that we did with Loop as the beginning, and we're excited about it. They're a phenomenal company, and Rob Anson and the team has done an amazing job, and we're excited to be partnering with them.
Okay, so David, let's kind of wrap up. We're going to have you back next week for an update. We're going to do like an extensive Q&A. We'll have some extensive audience questions. This is kind of I know this is not your first rodeo, but this is your first rodeo, of course. So next time we'll have you back for some extensive Q&A. But I want to kind of to be very candid. The investor base that we have for sure is that they need immediate constant daily news flow. Like news. They need news releases like 3 times a day, otherwise, they think a stock is going to go to zero. So, what kind of news flow can they expect from KABN? Next few months. Like, what? Give us an idea of like what kind of pace, like what kind of developments you have, so that we want to set expectations now, so that people they don't start going crazy.
No worries, no worries. Well, if you look at our history of news releases, through the early days, we were averaging 2 a week. That's what we did. And recently, while we've been preparing for this COVID-19 verifiable credential, our news pace was a little less as we're doing that. I mean, it is December, and obviously, but I think you can expect, a very healthy news flow through this month, and then starting in January, an excitable pace from there. We've got a lot to talk about, but we want to make sure we're doing it right, and the audience is prepped to consume it. And what you'll see about our releases, which may be different than other people's releases, is ours are more storytelling. So we'll refer back to information that we've already talked about, so that people can see the building of a story. It's really important. We've seen this to be very successful, so that you can see the culmination of what we're doing, not just isolated events. So I think if anyone follows us, the other thing too is we're really good at getting back to people. If we can't guarantee we can get back to everybody in minutes, but our contact information is available publicly. If you reach out, we get back to you. That's always been a mandate of mine as a CEO in any of our companies, that we want to talk to our constituents, because sometimes we get really great ideas from people, and we want to make sure that we're building, effectively partnerships with our constituents. So we want to keep everyone happy, but we've also got to run a company and make sure things are done right.
Okay. So I guess the main thing is that there's going to be a high level of transparency in terms of news flow as the company makes milestones, things like that. Actually, I want to ask a question. There's a guy who's asking an interesting question. I want to pop it up on the screen. Will you be able to monetize metadata?
That is an interesting question, and I want to be careful in my response, because there was just another provision in California with the election that's going to change anonymized data, de-identified data, and other data. So we again, because we don't sell or rent data, it's important to understand that we have to have permission for everything we do. So that's number one. Number two is there are rules around metadata and other components, and new rules coming into play. So as we follow those rules, those regulations, but as long as we believe our consumers can benefit from a solution and they give us permission, implied permission, we will act accordingly. We have to act in trust and within the rules and regulations.
Okay, David. So I'm going to ask you one last question today, which is our favorite here at the Wall Street Reporter, which is in your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors should consider KABN stock.
Well, again, you got to look at the business first, right? We're about building a growth story. So reach. Look at our market. If we talk about our market is the addressable market is 100% of people online. So that's easy. We have a great team. If you spend a little bit of time to look at our team, see we have a really great team, and we have a really unique business approach. I mean, our consumers get all our services and offerings for free, and we monetize it by partnering with consumers. That's probably the largest market available. So we believe we have an opportunity to succeed. We're all vested in the company. The senior team took a long-term escrow on our stock to make sure that we can power our investors first. So we want to make sure that ourselves and our stakeholders succeed. That's our goal.
Okay. David, on that note, I want to thank you, and we look forward to having you back on next week. We'll have an extensive Q&A with hopefully some key new developments, and we'll go from there. David, thank you again.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, KABN, KABN. We're gonna follow this company closely. They're gonna be back soon. We're gonna see if this is gonna be our next 10 bagger. So let's get ready to meet our next presenter. It is Light Holland. Let me put this up, and then we're gonna bring the CEO on. Just 1 second here. Let me get prepared for you. Let's see. Okay, let's take this off. Okay. All right. And what I need to just add this over here. Okay, now it's working. All right. Thank you for standing by, everybody. Okay, let's see if we have our special guest here.
How you doing?
Hey. All right. How are you?
I'm great, Jack. Thanks for having me on the Wall Street Reporter. You look a lot younger than I thought for being around since 1840s, man. You look great.
Yeah, 1843. You know, it's I am like, what's that guy? The vampires.
Yeah, well, yeah, you could be. Or Yoda. Are you Yoda? A lot of wisdom.
Yeah. we're gonna have to do another segment where we do like jokes. We have I have with another CEO. Like, there's another CEO that I work with, and half the time off the things we just crack each other up. So Todd, so the main thing is today we're gonna kind of introduce you to the audience, right? I think that there's a lot of people, who've been following the space, the psychedelic space. I've been kind of tracking it. I've been really looking kind of for like a stock which, I think could have some legs, real potential in the space, because I think it's going to be one of the big themes. Like, look, everybody knows that, they're kind of assuming that psychedelics now is where, cannabis was, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And that this is going to be the breakout year. We've seen stocks start to move, and I think 2020 this year is going to be that inflection point. So I'm glad to have you on, and we're going to find out more about Light Holland. So, okay, Todd, I'm going to do a quick intro because we're going to, when people see this later, I want to stick this in. So it's going to be live to tape, right? As you say in the radio, live to tape.
We go live to air. I mean, when I used to do radio, we just went right to air, man.
Perfect. Okay, so let me do it. Okay, so welcome everybody to Wall Street Reporter's next Super Stock, a live stream for today, December 8th, 2020. I have with us Light Holland, CSE Trip, TRUFF over the counter. We have Todd Shapiro as the CEO, and Todd, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic. I'm really pleased to be here, and I just I loved watching your last guest, and really interesting stuff that you bring to the table.
Todd, is one of the things that our audience looks for. They look for stocks which have that 10x upside. If you saw the previous introduction, we've had a number of stocks on our program last year that are up 1,300%, 72,000%, 500, a bunch of stocks that have been like 4x, 5x in the last month. So what investors want to know, I mean, the main thing is, before even getting into the whole business, which is the key, is what is going to be the path, like what can make, Light Holland let's call it a $250, $3 stock? What needs to happen for it to get there?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, Jack, I don't like to give price projections on these things, but what I would like to say is, I once heard Tim Cook speak of Warren Buffett when he found out that Warren invested in Apple. And I thought it was just an amazing reply because, of course, Tim said we're in it for all shareholders. And, me as the CEO of Light Holland and our entire management team, we're in this to build the business for all shareholders. But when Tim Cook found out that Warren Buffett had invested into Apple, he said, well, isn't that great? Because now we're aligned in our long-term vision because he had the best long-term investor. So for us, first and foremost, we like to think of long-term. But when you ask me, how can this industry grow? Because we're in an industry and we're in a sector. And right now, if you look at the sector that Light Holland is being paired into, you will look at companies that we feel we're completely undervalued to. So you can look at Compass Pathways, you can look at MindMed, other companies, for example, that have market caps, some over 2 billion, some approaching 1 billion, and some that really aren't doing that much. And listen, we all wish them well, but are over 100 million. Currently, we're at a market cap, today I haven't looked where we're trading at last, but call it, 30 million, maybe 35 million. So meaning we're undervalued to the peers in the sector. But I think what separates us and what really excites us over at Light Holland is a lot of the other psychedelic companies, and you're hearing about the psychedelic sector, they are really approaching it from a medical perspective, sort of really a big pharma perspective. And at the end of the day, big pharma is wonderful after raising hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and after diluting your stock, to potentially having an opportunity to be bought out. And if you're bought out, that's a big win for people. But how many people were never bought out? How many people never got their story to market? And for us, we are executing on a plan. And I think this is what really, again, excites our shareholders and excites our management team, meaning we are selling legally in the Netherlands truffles of the magic variety. There's some people say $100 million market within that country alone of magic truffles sold through smart shops and online. And we've approached that market. Think of the way, in fact, Red Bull was discovered. Red Bull was discovered in Thailand. And look at the market that they then made for Red Bull across the world. So it's not that it's a new product, but it really is an entire new group, it's its own new category for people consuming a new product that we could perhaps bring to the world one day. And that's what we're really excited about. So we have microdose packs. We are selling them in smart shops now. We grow. We have a facility in Horst in the Netherlands. Really cool stuff. It's a beautiful little town. Our president is born in that town, known for mushroom farmers, legal mushroom farmers, by the way, and just a really quaint little area. We have set up our facility. We've just grown our first 100,000 grams of truffles, which is amazing. We're actually harvesting and packaging them as we speak. And then we've actually signed a definitive agreement with a wholesale company to sell those truffles. And in the meantime, our truffles are put into stores. They're on 8 smart shops. They're sold online, smart shops. Think of it like a glorified convenience store for certain products and sort of paraphernalia. And we're really excited because we're executing on that vision. We're delivering right away. And of course, we think that we can really tremendously, make an impact and disrupt this market.
Okay. So Todd, you mentioned a couple things I really want to dive into. I want to talk about the Red Bull stuff because I think that's and so last time we talked about Red Bull, and I think it's very important for the audience. So I want to cover that. But for anybody that may not know, like again, this is the Wall Street Reporter program, so it's not the Joe Rogan podcast. So a lot of our audience may not know the difference between truffles, mushrooms. Have you ever tried DMT? That question that he asks. No. So what exactly do you do? What is it? What's the difference between truffles, mushrooms, psychedelics? What are you guys doing exactly? What does Light Holland produce?
Yeah, I'm really happy. And I think maybe a better idea is to give a little history on me for a second, and then maybe I can get into why I got into the space and then tell you all about this stuff. Because I actually think it really provides some really interesting context that people might want to hear. So, listen, for 20 years, I had a really cool career in radio, hence, I don't maybe look like a traditional CEO, but, I made a brand, wearing a hat, wearing Air Jordans and going out and doing my thing and doing it at a high level. In fact, when I raised my money for the company, the first $4 million, I went to Bay Street wearing Air Jordans, wearing a ball cap, and just doing it the way I do it, because I always believe that nobody should compromise whoever they are, as long as they actually can, have passion behind them, have hard work behind them, and then deliver and put those two together to create results. And that's what I'd like to think I've done my entire career. But what I noticed towards the end of my career in media, and I left on my own terms so I could really dedicate my entire time to Light Holland, was we are in a mental health crisis right now. And it is actually really disturbing. It is really frightening. And it's really quite sad. And, I would speak to very creative types, artists, musicians, comedians. I would speak to so many people on a daily basis on my show on SiriusXM. And the common theme that kept coming back was people were just not in a good place mentally. And now listen, I can't make medical claims, nor can my company, nor really can anybody in the sector right now. But if you anecdotally research things like magic mushrooms, and I'll explain to you the difference in magic truffles, and if you look towards the studies and the FDA breakthrough therapy and people talking about psychedelics, and specifically in our case, psilocybin, you'll learn that, wow, maybe this can potentially help what's going on. So I did a massive deep dive, because that's what I used to do as a radio show host, studying, learning, just really, and all of a sudden it became my new passion. I'm a guy who suffers from a tremendous amount of anxiety. I mean, copious amounts. And people found that hard to believe because I'm pretty out there. I have a good personality. I'd like to think I got the gift of the gab. And, I was definitely socialite in my day for sure. I have no qualms, admitting that. So meaning I was in the scene, I was out there. But, I struggled with a lot of it until I went to the Netherlands and anecdotally took legal truffles. And when I did that, it was fascinating to me, Jack, what happened. All the anxieties I still possessed. They were all there, man. I was still just as nervous, still just as fearful, but they parked them aside. They shelved them in my brain. And it allowed me to kind of focus on what the tasks were at hand or really live in the moment. And that's something, listen, I have a 1-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, I have an amazing wife. It's tough with COVID. I don't see my parents as much anymore. But, living in the moment is the thing that I think human beings are missing out on the most. And I wanted to go and say, how can I make a difference now after doing media for 20 years to better the lives for our children, to be able to go on this mission to say, how do we live in the moment more and how do we enjoy life more? Because we only have one of it. And, my mission is to do that. So again, I can't make medical claims of what truffles do, but reading about psilocybin, I decided this was my new goal in life. I needed to bring this to the forefront, to provide access like they do in the Netherlands. And my goal is to provide access to people everywhere, not just an elite person's big pharma game, because that's a dangerous game, in my opinion. We've seen what benzos have done. We've seen what opioids have done. We've seen how big pharma has actually destroyed lives, contributing to worse off situations for families and sadly, really terrible stuff, terrible reports. And I just thought responsibly through education and information, how can I and now Light Holland make a difference? So I thought that context was important to let people know why and how passionate I am, because I'm doing my best to, try to be a part of positive change. And we want to see these results of positive change. So this leads me back to what we're doing in the Netherlands and the truffles. Listen, I'm not a mycologist, but I can tell you that, the simple term here is, the truffle is the underground portion, really, the sclerotia, before it becomes above ground to become a mushroom. It's the subterranean part. And that's really the only difference that people need to know. They possess psilocybin, they're grown underground, they never see the light of day. And in the Netherlands, you can still sell truffles legally. You can't sell magic mushrooms. So they're grown in inoculated bags, and this is what's growing in our facility in Horst. They're it's essentially a sterile environment, although it's not EU GMP. And they never see the light of day, and they're grown over time, where then you sort of break open the bags, you wash off the grains, and you have your truffles, meaning they can never get to the point of magic truffles. We've recreated the underground growth part of growing the truffles. And then they are put into, now the way we're selling them, through responsible and I always go back to education, information, responsible use, is we're selling them as microdoses. I'm not sure, Jack, if you've read up on what's going on in the microdose community, or if some of your viewers, and you have a ton of viewers who know much about it, but I encourage and implore everyone, Google just microdose, #microdose on Twitter, on Instagram. Go and get a feel of what people are saying about what it's doing for their anxiety, for their focus, for their living in the moment. I'm not telling you this. This is what people are anecdotally repeating over and over and over again. And by the way, things like truffles and things like magic mushrooms, they've been used for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Certain indigenous cultures swear by them still to this day. And, this is sort of given to us. These are products that were given to us and used responsibly. I'd like to think we're learning so much more about them. And anecdotally, I'm learning from our consumers. And this is the most important part. We have a campaign going on right now, which is I microdose because, and you know why we're doing that, Jack? I can't tell you why you're microdosing. I want to learn from our consumer why they are microdosing, meaning we can collect this information. And I'm rambling here because that's what I do best, but I could continue to go on about how we're collecting the information if you'd like me to keep talking.
Sure. Okay, so so I want to zero in this. So basically, so essentially it's an organic product. This is 100% organic. This is not a synthetic.
Actually, that's a great question. You can only sell the truffles in their raw, unprocessed, natural form. So you can't manipulate them, you can't extract them, you can't put them into capsules, you can't even dip them in chocolate. So this is in the natural form. And by the way, they're like a walnutty kind of substance. They have a softer kind of texture to them, when you consume them, and they kind of got a hint of lemon, kind of like it makes you, if anyone, and by the way, I'm sure a lot of people, and it's funny now, people are really admitting this over and over. You're hearing more stories. Oh, I've done mushrooms, I've done truffles. People are way more comfortable. The stigma is ending to talk about this stuff. I think most people would say the truffle is actually, as a consumer goods product, is more enjoyable than kind of like a dried out harsh mushroom.
But so what's the difference between the mushrooms and the truffle? I mean, in terms of the effect, is the effect the same basically?
Yeah, and again, the effect varies, right? So this is where I can't jump in and tell you what the effect is, but what most people would say, that the psilocybin content is sort of like it's depending on the usage. So in a microdose, as opposed to a hero dose or a macro dose, you would use very little. And the effect, generally, what anecdotally a lot of people say, is really very little effect, in fact, meaning that the effect is back to that living in the moment. I like to kind of talk about it in terms of living life through my 5-year-old's eyes, where he's just happy and, he sees snow on the ground and he just wants to go out and enjoy it. He doesn't, have these guarded thoughts or these inhibitions. He just like living life to the fullest. And, that's what I can tell you about magic truffles. I don't know what others could say. And the hero dose and the macro dose, I mean, you could go into the professionals like a Paul Stamets or others, they can tell you all sorts of different things. And, there's guided therapies and therapists that can tell you about the psychological guided experience with them. For us right now, it's about the responsible use of the microdose. And again, we want to know from consumers what that experience is.
Okay, so basically, you're selling a branded product, right? A branded truffle. Right?
Yes. So listen. This is actually what I think really separates our.
How big is the actual thing that you take?
Yeah, so it's a 15-gram box right now. The first product offering that we have is Red Light Holland. It comes in basically three different packs of 5-gram bags, and your recommended usage would be a gram per dose. So basically 15 uses of the microdose pack that would sell for €25. And we sell it online at imicrodose.nl, and we sell it currently in 8 smart shops. And listen, we've announced that we have a non-binding letter of intent right now with a really big distribution and wholesale company. Of course, we're going through our due diligence phase, so anything can happen. We're learning a lot about it. But if we could close on this deal, which we're obviously hoping to, we didn't put the offer just to say, that would really open up a lot of great distribution channels for us.
Okay, so it sounds actually pretty reasonable. This is like $1 a dose, basically.
Yeah, a little over $1 a dose, and listen, it's very affordable. Like if Jack, if you start to compare what people spend on alcohol a year, or if you even cannabis per year, or even like energy drinks per year, like this really is in our opinion a very affordable kind of opportunity for people to discover this. Again, you can only do this legally in the Netherlands right now where we are, and we had to get very extensive legal opinions to back that up.
Okay, so so right now this is legal in the Netherlands. You're selling this, and you're at the revenue stage now, right? You're selling this?
Yes, we launched our product very late September, and we're in shelves. COVID is around, but we're aggressively trying to get eyes on the website as well, imicrodose.nl, and there's great margins when you don't go through the wholesale route as well. So yeah, listen, we're building this brand, but we're also, and I can't wait to talk about this, we're building the brand really uniquely away from the Netherlands to predicting what might eventually come down the road.
Yes, I want to because that's I think the fascinating thing I want to get into what we kind of touched on last night is, so the main thing is this: where is this going to be legalized now? Like I think somebody mentioned Oregon. I think Vancouver is legal. Where's and what places are kind of like pipeline for legalization in the next let's call it 12 months?
Yes, and Jack, how's my reception? Is it okay for you today? Are you getting me okay?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure because I was getting a little choppy, but no, a really good question. So we're legal in the Netherlands, and all anyone really has to do is go do a Wikipedia search or a Google search to find out what countries are allowing psilocybin. So, you'll pop up Brazil, you'll pop up Jamaica, you'll pop up Bulgaria. You'll learn about what's going on in Mexico. Of course, Measure 109, which was just passed in Oregon, which will be a 2-year regulatory framework, which Oregon authorities are going to work on to provide psilocybin psilocybin for therapeutic reasons. And essentially what they're going to do is look at kind of the way medical cannabis used to be, is that it was prescribed. The natural product of cannabis, the cannabis plant, was used as a medicine. And I think that's how the Oregon authorities are going to look at it with the natural magic mushrooms and perhaps maybe even magic truffles.
Okay. And okay, so there's, look, I think the reality is, and this is just a matter of time before, we see this legalized in more and more places in the US, globally. I mean, the Pandora's box, whatever, is open, right? The genie is out of the bottle. And I think once one place legalizes and people say, okay, people aren't, from taking this, everything is great. It's just gonna from there. But in the meanwhile, though, can you explain, Todd, like kind of vision, because you have a kind of a very unique vision for creating a brand, like a global brand in the space, in the truffle space, and which I think, from what I understand, is your strategy is to get this massive brand. So by the time legal in all these places, they're going to come to you, and you're going to already own mind share, mind share.
I mean, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm a brand builder. My background is building brands. For 20 years, I worked in some of the biggest radio shows that Canada's ever seen. I've worked with some of the biggest companies that Canada's ever seen, from, as a brand ambassador or an influencer. I worked with, Canopy Growth is a good example of that. I worked for Tweed. I used to bring out Snoop Dogg to concerts. I even helped do, certain brand building with Canada Goose. I've interviewed Mark Messier, famous hockey player, at a Harry Rosen store. I've worked with, Samsung and Canadian Tire. So I've had experience on understanding how you connect with audiences. And I'd like to think that I do that very well, to be able to build the brand. Because listen, at the end of the day, I think building brands and brand value is really, like, in my opinion, these days especially, it's almost more important than a commoditized plant. If you think about it, like if you look like the Red Bull lifestyle that they built around the one energy drink that they have. And if you can do this successfully, well, that gives you a massive head start in any industry, quite frankly. And I'd like to think that nobody has done it in the psychedelic sector ever, like we're doing it at Light Holland. And why is that? Oh, I'll tell you why. Right out of the gate, look at our management team. Okay, Bruce Linton, the former CEO of Canopy Growth, is the chair of our advisory board. So how does that help with brand building? Well, think about it. I get advice from Bruce almost every day about our logo, which we're changing, by the way, and I'll get back to that, about, ways to connect with an audience, because he's a great brand builder. On top of getting, Canopy Growth to whatever billions of dollars he got it to at one point, he is really engaged with the people that support his companies. And I have firsthand experience of that when I did and hosted their shindig out in Smith Falls, and I brought out Snoop Dogg. Here's Bruce Linton, when their stock's trading at $67 or something on that day, blowing up beach balls and throwing them into the audience. That's the type of CEO that I admire. That's the type of CEO that I look to be a mentor and a coach. And that's the type of person I am, connecting with people. So beyond Bruce, what else do we have? Russell Peters, global famous comedian. And I mean, Jack, like this guy, a lot of people don't realize, in 2013 or 2014, whatever it was, he was the second or third highest paid comedian behind guys like Jerry Seinfeld. He has built a global brand for himself. He's a small, out of a small sort of suburb out of Toronto, Canada. It was called Brampton. He eventually became a worldwide famous comedian. And the beautiful part about that is he did it himself. He was his own entity as opposed to a product, built that product up. So I get experience from Russell Peters, who's on our team. By the way, has multiples of millions of followers on Twitter, Facebook. I think he's like, maybe 8 million combined if you do all the math of all the different social medias. Recently, we announced working with a very Instagram famous model. And people, kind of thought, well, why are you using a model? Well, guess what? There are alternative revenue streams in industries. And if you don't capitalize like Ferrari did, not only just selling Ferraris, but selling great Ferrari merchandise, if you don't do that, then you're not thinking
of making more merchandise than they are with cars now.
Exactly. And people don't realize that. And if the CEO is not thinking in the best interest of their shareholders to go alternative revenue stream, well, guess what? They're not going to grow that company. So we hired a really wonderful lady. She's an advocate for Autism Speaks. Her brother has autism, and she's a really wonderfully put together, individual, very powerful, very intelligent, but also a model. And by the way, what do models do? They help sell clothing. So, now that we're doing this rebranding of our logo, we've already started selling some merch at imicrodose.ca, because that's a product I can sell in Canada, the United States, in any country, because right now I can only sell my other product in certain countries. And right now we're starting in the Netherlands. The other thing we're doing, which I think, like, this to me, to be honest, and I'm sorry if I'm rambling a lot, but I could get so excited by this. Like, we just announced last week, working with what Time Magazine named last year the most famous structural designer in all of the Americas. His name is Karim Rashid. This guy is just go and Google his name, Karim Rashid, Rashid, and look at the designs. He's worked with Hugo Boss. He's worked with major hotels, with Audi, with Samsung. I mean, he's designed some of the coolest stuff ever in the world. And he's working for us now as our head of a design, working on a product that we're calling the Wisdom Truffle. And I don't know how much time we have, but I could get in all the tech and where the Wisdom Truffle is right now.
We're going to. We have plenty of time.
Okay, because I love this stuff, man. We're executing.
I want to give some context in case anybody. So Karim Rashid, right? My background was it was in the art business before. And so this guy is really sort of like a rock star in the world of design. I mean, like you see is everywhere. This is like it's actually a major brand name. And think of like, who's the guy, like how many do you know of? You know of the guy that made the Apple, right? The Mac. Was it John Ivey, the iPod, or whatever it is? Or a couple of guys, a few brands. But and we were talking, I think last night, you mentioned okay, so first explain what this guy's gonna do, and I'm gonna tell you why I think this is actually gonna sell very well, this product that you're gonna make.
Because I appreciate that.
You mentioned the cause, KAWS.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I have my ear to the street. Let's be honest. Like, I really know what's going on in social media. I know trends. I'm a shoe collector. I probably made tens of thousands of dollars on flipping shoes on StockX. I just really understand what is going on with the street and what catches on. And I connect to the people. Am I in academia? No. Am I a scientist? No. Am I, am I filled with, am I even really from the cannabis industry? No. What I am is from the people industry. I connect with people, and I know what people want these days. And I'll tell you what people want. They want companionship, and they want to be able to be spoken to directly in genuine and authentic ways, and understand and learn, have education, and make decisions for themselves, though. So with Karim, what we're doing, and it's sort of a little bit of a backdrop here, because this is how responsible we're being as a company, Jack. We in the Netherlands have just finished developing our virtual reality headsets that are currently, literally as we speak, being shipped to the Netherlands from Silicon Valley, from that area, working with a company called Radix Motion that has a 4-minute video on learning about the magic truffle, learning about the origins about the magic truffle, learning about how it connects with your 5-HT2TA receptors, learning about so much about the truffle, and almost mimicking your mind of what it feels like to be microdosing before you buy our product. We want to be this regulatory and this responsible. So by the way, if someone's uncomfortable with that, you shouldn't buy our product. How does that relate to the Wisdom Truffle? Well, the Wisdom Truffle is actually within this virtual reality experience. He's like a really cute little figure, and you can get in him and even do this this dance. They have like this special dance technology, movement technology.
So Karim is going to design this figure for you, right?
Yeah. So now he's going to make that come to life and design it. And what we want to do, and the plan is to then, get this manufactured and sell it as an alternative revenue stream.
Okay, so Todd, just to give some people a context, is like the figure you're going to make is similar to like what the artist KAWS, KAWS, does. He makes those cartoonish figures, right? I mean, he does fine art, paintings, but he also does a line of mass-produced collectibles, or even crazy. This guy's market is going through the roof. It's a little bit like, you probably know this. I mean, I know the name, but I don't know. Is this brand like Supreme, right? Supreme.
I believe in brand.
I don't understand it, but basically anything they put their logo on, it just people buy, like a hammer.
Well, maybe
whatever.
Hugo Boss is a good example, right? Like Kareem did Hugo Boss designs. He just designed a perfume bottle for them, and he's designing our wisdom truffle. This is just amazing stuff for a small cap company that's in this nascent early industry where we feel we're undervalued to what's going on with some of these other medical plays. And we're sitting there going, at some point, Jack, could this follow the path of cannabis? Could access to psilocybin, a natural-based product, think about that for a second. It's natural. It's not like you're creating a synthetic. And people, as we all know, and we totally know this, have been using it for years and years and are still today ordering them online illegally in Canada, in America, in Mexico, you name it. They're ordering these magic mushrooms illegally. So why not go the route of cannabis, hopefully regulate the industry, which we're trying to do as a company already, and then be able to sell it legally, where, by the way, the government then gets their tax dollars. If people are going to use this anyway, why aren't we taxing people on it? And we quite frankly want to provide the access. We want to, do it carefully, and we're doing it again by building this really, really cool brand. And we're very excited by it. We're really, really excited. We're catching on. I mean, I think the stock might even reflect the brand build. We're trading, tens of millions of shares some days, including today. I think we're up to 30 million.
Wow. Yeah. No. So I want to get back to the branding thing, because I think this is the crazy part, which I think could be more valuable than a lot of stuff. So you're gonna have Kareem design this figure, right? You're gonna sell these like cute kind of like figurines, basically, and it's gonna become a collectible, just like Cause, just like Supreme. It's going to become a huge thing, because this guy really he's like an A-list guy. I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm sure it'll work. And you're going to have these kind of like these cute figures. It's going to become a whole branding thing. And that in itself could become, I mean, what did Supreme sell for? I think Supreme just sold for was $1 billion, a couple of $1 billion. I think the brand was sold.
Well, I mean, all someone has to do is look at like what a company like Nike is worth or whatever, and if you had Michael Jordan, and Tinker Hatfield, helping out design Air Jordans and, with the success of those. And listen, I'm not saying we're going to get to Nike status at all here, but I really are just looking for these potential alternative
because this is more subversive. So what you're doing, because the Truffles is a little bit more subversive than cannabis. So by its nature, it becomes a more interesting product for consumers. It's just a cooler product.
And what I like about it, though, it's educating at the same time, right? So we call it a wisdom truffle. Why? Because there's actually augmented reality that's going to be built into. So you're going to be able to hold up your phone, put it onto the wisdom truffle. The wisdom truffle is going to shoot you out some messages, and it's going to tell you, to be honest, what it's going to tell you is live in the moment. How can we recreate an microdose lifestyle? Because we can't sell the product for people to understand what the lifestyle is, but what we can do is promote what we are learning are, people anecdotally telling us what it does for them. So put down your phone. It's actually, we picture it holding your phone and then giving you a message saying, go out for a walk, or, go call your mom and your dad and have it. Oh, I guess that's a bad example because you put your phone down, but you go connect with nature, go do some yoga or stretching. This is our idea. We want people to disconnect from their phones, from their Instagrams, from their Facebooks. I'm under a big belief right now, and I've seen all this anxiety going on, that people are sadly trying to live their lives online, and COVID's made this worse because there's not many personal connections going on anymore, and you're feeling down because you're not getting the likes you want, you're not getting the attention you want, you're not getting the retweets. But by the way, that's not how you live life, in my opinion. And now I'm 47 years old and I have kids and I want to get outside more and do activities. We want to get you back to living in the moment. This is Light Holland's mission, and this is what we want to do through our products, through our product offerings, through our alternative revenue stream opportunities, and also just through our messaging. We want to create a really cool community and a really cool, feeling of individuals that can open up to one another and share their experiences too at some point, because that is going to help the conversation, that is going to help end the stigma, and that is going to help hopefully bring fulfillment into people's lives.
Yeah, no. So we just kind of did the backstory about the branding thing, because I think so. You're going to start. Well, first of all, you're already in production. You got the truffles out in the market. You're getting sales. It's early on, but at the same time, you're launching the branding, the global branding, which is really going to kind of pave the way. It's going to create, it's going to pave the way for, your rollout over the next couple of years. So it's really long-term thinking. That's actually very clever, and it's probably going to make money. Talking about, Ferrari I think they make more money from merchandise now than the cars, or definitely the margins, right? Other brands we can talk. I think Supreme was a skateboard maker originally, right? They make skateboards.
So and then they went into merch, and the big red stripe.
So technically they're a skateboard company, but all their other stuff is like whatever, just whatever the merchandise is. So it's the same thing here. You're really a truffle company, but you can make a lot of money on the merch with this stuff. With this, which is, I think people are going to need to see it, because we're talking about, well, once they see it, then they'll understand it. Once they see the actual product and everything else, then they get it. Yeah.
And listen, we just signed Kareem on as our head of design, so we have time to demonstrate it and show it to the world. But in the meantime, you go back to what we're doing as a company. We've executed on a vision. We're not telling stories here. You talk to a lot of companies in the small cap space. They have great decks. They put on beautiful suits and a nice tie, and they look you dead in the eye and they tell you a story, and then you go, well, have you acted on that story yet? And by the way, I told the market that I was going to have product on shelves by the end of Q3, and guess what? We delivered on that as a team, and a very small, tight team too. We are operating on a very tight budget. We have a lot of, we just reported our financials. You can go to CDAR to check them out. We have over $6 million that we filed there. We have some assets too. I think it puts us over $7 million. We've been really careful with our spending, with delivering on what we say we're going to do. It's early. Of course, it's speculative. Of course, it's a nascent industry. But what we want to do is continue to show. You mentioned Joe Rogan earlier. How many small cap companies have been mentioned on Joe Rogan? I've been getting emails from across the world, probably because of that mention. And what we're hearing is from people going, when can I get your product? When can we get your product? Todd, I'm a firefighter. I don't talk about what I'm going through very much. I have post-traumatic stress disorder from what I've been going through. I want access to your product, but I can't get it. So I've invested in your company. These are the types of stories we're hearing at Red Light Holland, and we're so grateful for the support, and we're so proud of the team. And listen, it's early, but I'm a worker. I have 2 kids and a wife, and it's tough. I'm not seeing them as much as I'd like to, but I'm just doing my best to provide access to people is my goal, through responsible ways as a company, a good corporate governance, and of course, education and information. And listen, could we expand? We'll look into the countries that you can Google to see where potentially we can be. But we have introduced a partnership, and it's non-binding right now, with Halo Labs, a company that was founded in Oregon, that we are looking to explore to create a joint venture to get into Oregon as this regulatory framework is being written out. So we're already looking and trying to get into that category. Of course, it's a little bit of time away, but we're working with people who understand those who write the regulatory frameworks, because they're there. We're not just telling a story saying we're going to be there. Of course, it's non-binding right now, but why wouldn't we try to get to that point working with an established company?
Okay, we're going to get into some audience questions. Todd, do you have time?
Yeah, man. As long as you don't mind screaming kids in the background and my phone going off the hook, this is great. I love this stuff.
Okay. So we're going to go into some audience questions. So I think the main thing is this, basically, because you're in revenue right now. It's early on in the Netherlands. Before I get into Jacqueline's question about the Halo Labs, or how big is the opportunity in the Netherlands by itself? What kind of revenues can you talk about, your projections? What do you expect to generate the next, 12 months, 18 months?
So, what I'd like to say is there's a market of about 100 million that we feel $100 million worth of truffles that could be sold. And how do you disrupt that market? So there's a really interesting way of disrupting it. It's obviously through, growing this brand, because nobody in the Netherlands, in my opinion, sorry, my little 5-year-old is here. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm giving merch to the audience for my 5-year-old. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
You got free labor.
Like 5-year-old. I guess we're doing merch giveaways now live on the Wall Street Reporter. But
you want to give something away? We'll do a giveaway.
Dude, I'd love to give these great hats away and stuff.
How do we do this? Sure. What do we need to do for the hat giveaway?
We'll tweet it out. We'll do a retweet contest after. Okay. You can get me at I am Tony Tickles.
Because I've never put that giveaway.
And so, yeah, listen, you got to be a voice to people. You got to, we don't mind, sharing what we think is this brand build. But back to the disruption. a lot of the way they're marketing truffles right now in the Netherlands, really, you don't know if you're buying fireworks or if you don't know if you're buying truffles. Like, should I eat this stuff or light it on fire? Like, it's just, there hasn't been much thought being put into it. Back to the Red Bull analogy, in every smart shop that we're currently in, we've supplied them with a fridge because, again, they have to be in their raw, wet, unprocessed form, meaning they have to be refrigerated to keep that shelf life of approximately 3 months after they go to market. So when you open it up with these really beautifully designed fridges, you go in there, it stands out the second you walk into the smart shop, in my opinion. Think of Red Bull, the way they did their fridges in convenience stores. You'd walk in, the convenience store didn't look that great, but you saw this really cool modern looking brand. And, this is the type of things that we're putting thought into right off the bat.
Interesting. Okay, and so 100 million is the market just in the Netherlands alone.
Well, yeah, that's just the Netherlands. I mean, listen, I'm very careful on how I'm going to say it.
Yeah, okay, it's pretty decent.
But what I love about it is I don't want to make the mistakes that cannabis companies made. And there were a lot of mistakes that these companies made, meaning they thought they could predict the market while they were raising, a ton of cash. And then they just blew their cash because they didn't understand who their demographics were. There's no way, you can't grow a company that way, in my opinion. You have to carefully understand who your audience is and then how you speak to your audience and how you then garner that support from your audience and then obviously continue to grow with them, and then they will continue to go and promote you, and that's what really grows a company, in my opinion. So the nice thing about the Netherlands is let's not burn through our cash.
Like Red Bull. Sorry, very similar to Red Bull.
Yeah, well, Red Bull started small, European countries, nightclub scenes, and then it grew.
With the brand, the whole. Okay, so you and Red Bull are really two sides of the same. I mean, opposite sides of the same almost. I mean, they're a stimulant. You're like a mind expansion thing. Same thing, really.
Yeah. Actually, technically, in the Netherlands. So, sorry, Jack, I was cutting you off, but I just was having bad reception. But in the Netherlands, the truffle is classified as a stimulant. Actually, you pay a 21% VAT tax on it, VAT tax. So yeah, we want to look to the countries where we can go to next. And if there's ever an opportunity to go to Brazil, the population of Brazil now goes from 17 million to over 200 million. So you look to slowly expand, but understand your demographic before you go there, because then it saves you wasting money. You got to have a beta study. This is how companies are grown. Uber did it. All these, you got to understand who uses you. Go do that carefully. And then all of a sudden, that's when expansion happens. And you don't dilute by raising money thinking you can predict it.
Interesting. Let's jump into Jacqueline's question. How does Labs fit into the equation?
How does, sorry?
Halo Labs fit into the equation.
Well, listen, I'm actually a big fan of their CEO over there, Kieran Sidhu, and he's about really expansion and he wants global domination. And listen, they've really garnered sort of a lot of accretion within their company. They have little pockets of everywhere where they are. They're in Oregon, they've gone to Las Vegas now, they want to go into California, they're in Lesotho, Africa. I mean, they're really growing their brand. They have some sort of entities within the UK. So I like that thought about them, but they're from Oregon. So if we can get into a definitive here, we create a joint venture and then we work together. And think about it, we don't have to now use our manpower if we do get into a definitive to go and get a facility to potentially be growers in Oregon if we get a license over there. And we're also now have manpower over there, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're this Canadian company in the Netherlands, we now want to be in Oregon. Well, guess what? We're working with people, if we get to the definitive, who are from Oregon. And that's what's exciting for us.
Okay. We get a question here from Mr. B. He's asking, how can you scale this from 2 or 3 mom and pop shops to a multi-billion global disruptor?
Yeah, it's a great question and a really good question. So first off, on the Netherlands side of things, again, it's non-binding. We're doing the due diligence. We're obviously, everyone wants us to go through, but there's a wholesale company that we put an offer on. And if we can close on the wholesale company, they have distribution to pretty much every smart shop within the Netherlands. Also, they have distribution to collectively about 1,300 stores across Europe. Now, I can't get Truffles into those stores, but perhaps I could get a hat into those stores. Perhaps I could get the Wisdom Truffle into those stores. Distribution is everything for us, so we're really hoping that it goes through. It's a due diligence period. We have Dutch counsel working on that right now, and I can't wait to update the market on as soon as I can, and that's my plan. But then you look to other countries, and what I can tell you is this. If you look at the path of cannabis, In 2001, I believe, the Canadian government, what they did was they allowed cannabis to be used for compassionate grounds reasons. They granted that access where it could be prescribed. And they weren't prescribing pills or anything. They're prescribing the cannabis plant. What happened over the last 4 to 5 months here in Canada, where I am? Well, guess what? In Canada, the Canadian government, the health minister, has allowed magic mushrooms to be used for compassionate grounds. And first and foremost, I want to say as a company, we're so grateful for we're so proud of the government for making that decision, because the individuals who sadly are terminally ill and end of life here, they can live their remaining days anxiety free, and that's what they've asked the access for. Also, now they've granted access for trauma reasons. That was a case that came up recently. So in our opinion, we look at this as following that path of cannabis, and at the risk of ever sounding exploitive, because I don't want to, because first and foremost, we want people to be doing well at their end of days, but maybe now they're going to allow this for more medical reasons. And then, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, and again, I got my ear to the street, okay? I know the people. I talk to the people. I know, high-level radio shows. Everyone's using this magic mushroom, ordering them online anyway. So social movements are so powerful these days, Jack, in my opinion, that we're going to see, in my opinion, hurdles being broken down, pressures put on governments, and we're seeing it now with decriminalization movements, with these legalization movements saying, now you did cannabis, well, why can't you give us, the people, access to magic mushrooms or magic truffles? Because guess what? If you don't, I'm going to order it online illegally anyway. I'd rather it be a regulated industry. I'd rather be able to bring it to my mom's house and talk to her about a microdose pack and be open about it, because we want to end the stigmas. That's really BS, if you ask me, about what's really been talked about with psychedelic drugs for years and years and years. And ultimately, we want help now. And if there are proven out benefits of magic mushrooms, the Health Canada has granted them access for a reason. So they're obviously admitting at some point here that they're benefiting people, that they're helping with anxiety. So why can't they help with everybody's anxiety if that's what the government is allowing? So us as a company, we want to be responsible. We're doing it through education, information, VR headsets, augmented reality. We're creating a digital care program where literally we'll be in touch with you as you use our product to try to create the world's biggest clinical study of people actually using our product. Again, ear to the street. Let's talk to our consumers. So we'd like to think these social movements will be so powerful that maybe the way cannabis rolled out, which took 15 years to get recreationally, perhaps we'll see it far sooner than that. And if that's the case, then we'll maybe follow suit in America, and it'll be really interesting to watch what's going on. But I can tell you this: social movements are powerful. People want access. People are getting access. Why not do it legally?
No, I mean, things are really happening at a much faster pace. Like it took, I think, cannabis really, it really gained traction. It probably did take, I think, 10, but I think for this is going to happen in the next, let's call it 24 months maybe now, because the ground, the ground has been, the road has been paved by cannabis. So for the microdose, I guess for the microdose aspect, it should be, soon. But in the meanwhile, I think the key takeaway is that number one is you're going to have our revenues already in the Netherlands, and number two is you're going to be kind of paving the road with the branding, everything else on a global basis, kind of like a Red Bull, but almost like in reverse. Like first you have the brand out, and the brand. I mean, I think people will buy the brand, the stuff. I think some of these people are not even going to be consumers of the truffles. They just think it's cool. It doesn't really matter. It's like so that's very interesting. And let's see. I want to see if we can get into some more questions. Let's see if we have somebody asking about F1 racing. Red Light needing a F1 racing team. Let's see.
It's interesting. We'll consider all angles on how we bring in certain individuals to maybe work with the company. And we did it with Russell Peters. We did it now with Chloe. We did it with Kareem. And I'm very fortunate. Listen, I've interviewed Jerry Seinfeld, Jeff Goldblum. I'm not saying they're going to be, part of our company. Our company's been mentioned on Joe Rogan already. Like, I'm very lucky. I know a lot of people. I'm very humble about that. I've always found it weird to be my own product. I find it far easier as a CEO of a company to talk about how proud I am of our team, of what we're doing, and the brand itself, and of course the product itself. That's a much more comfortable place for me. But I'll go through my Rolodex, and if I, at some point, we'll see where else we can go with building a brand. Because go and read the story on Puma and how they built their brand and how they started. They were falling under, they weren't doing very well. Then they brought on Rihanna, Jay-Z, and I'm not saying I have connections to Jay-Z or Rihanna, but this is what elevates companies.
Same
these
idea.
days.
Yeah. No, but and also the thing is this. I mean, with Rashid, I mean, you have like this world-class guy. This is like, it's sort of the. In the music, he's like the Jay-Z of design almost, right? Like what Jay-Z is in the music business, this guy's kind of like in that world of. Okay, Todd, we got let's kind of wrap up here. What's your vision for Trip next? 2-3 years out, which is, I know it's an eternity for a lot of the investors. 2-3 years out, which is what is, if everything goes right? Let's just what is Red Light Holland going to look like?
Sure. And it's interesting you say 2-3 years away, because I think I was looking at charts the other day and I saw Canopy growth at 6 months of trading, and they were at like 270. I think I recall them being at. And I'm like, imagine if people just really believed in where the cannabis industry was going. And of course, you couldn't predict it then, and it was risky, and it was speculative, and it was new, and it was nascent, much exactly like, the position we're in right now. Although, we are in a market, so a little bit different. And, I think that, it's funny with the small cap world, because I like people like, look at Elon Musk's vision, like one day he said, we're going to go to Mars, and guess what? Like, he's going to get to friggin' Mars, but he almost went bankrupt doing so. And, as a company, we're proud of the fact that we want people to have access carefully. And by the way, we do have a science side. We have a science and innovation. I'll talk about that next time on your show, Jack. But, in turn, it's like, where am I going to be? I'm never going to give anyone price projections. All I'm going to tell you is that we work really hard. We have a great tight burn rate. We are delivering on what we're saying we're going to do. We're following, what's going on in Oregon, what's going on in DC. We're following what's going on in California, perhaps Colorado. We're looking, reading up on what's going on in Brazil and Jamaica. You've seen, people talk about psilocybin in Jamaica now. So we have our ear to the street, and we're going to carefully follow those paths that allow us to go. And in the meantime, we'd like to think they'd build the biggest psilocybin stimulant brand in the world.
Okay, sort of like a Red Bull, basically.
That's my goal, man. I want, it's really interesting.
Red Bull of Truffles.
Well, yeah, why not? And maybe magic mushrooms, and maybe other product offerings at some point too.
Okay. Todd, what's kind of like for the next couple of months or so? What kind of news flow can investors expect? Like, what kind of milestones do you have coming up? Let's call it short term, because again, we have a lot of very short term oriented people. Unfortunately, they need to know what's going to happen. The next 3-5 weeks. They can't look beyond 2 years. They need right now.
Well, I think it's an interesting question, because as new as I am to the capital markets, I also don't want to create fluff announcements. To me, that's not an effective strategy for a company. Like, I'm just not a fluff guy. Yeah, and I made a living every day speaking to people for 2 to 4 hours a day for 20 straight years. And whatever came out of my mouth was what I was living. And I always joke to my team, I go, I used to get paid in decent amounts of money to say everything that was on my mind. And now I get paid not to say what's on my mind because of selective disclosure reasons and everything. So what I can tell you, though, is that mind that was working for 20 straight years and always creating content and always creating, storylines and always creating great, captivating, engaging radio shows, that's how this mind works to try to grow a business. But when the time is right, you'll see announcements. I'm not going to create fluff for shareholder base. I'd like to think that when we do it, it's going to be meaningful. And I think that's exactly what we've done as a company so far, and we're proud of it.
Okay. Todd, I'm going to wrap up with this question here, and then we'll have you back next week. We'll go through the whole formal presentation, the next program. So Todd, our favorite question here, is, in your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors should consider, Trip today. Why should they consider buying Red Light Holland today?
Yeah, please do your due diligence or speak to your financials advisors and everything. Do all that. And one of the things I'll tell you is call me. Like just to have a transparent conversation. If you missed out on anything, like literally my phone number is 647-204-7129. Now, I'm never going to tell you to buy my stock, but if you missed out on something, I can talk to you, and I'll talk to you carefully. It's selective disclosure reasons. But really, listen, in my opinion, as a long-term shareholder, I think of us as being very undervalued to our peers. Look at the numbers of our peers and look at what they're doing. Where is their path to revenues and where is their path to profitability? I encourage you just to try to do those comparables and then look to where we're doing and where our path to profitability potentially can be. And I think that's big. And then ask yourselves, do you like the brand? And if you have any suggestions about the brand, by the way, we literally just announced a new brand logo contest with Russell Peters and Chloe to join a committee. We're going to give 3 people to join that committee $5,000 if they win this contest to be a part of helping with the brand. And I'll tell you why. I was taking feedback from a lot of our shareholders saying, they liked it, but they didn't love it. I want people to love it. I want people to love us and be a part of us. I want to be engaging with them, and I want to learn from them as well, because we're all coachable here. No ego in this space at all. There shouldn't be anyway. And listen, some companies have that ego. So listen, look at the, how we feel we're undervalued. I think a really important thing is to look at our float. We've really, we've traded, I think, twice our float now since we've been publicly traded. We're very proud of that. We've even traded 4 times through our last raise of that float that came free trading. The undervalued part is one that I look at and think, my goodness, I would look more into that and ask people around you who might understand that more so than yourselves. Or if you understand it, that might be an opportunity, but you have to make that decision for yourself.
No, I think one of the interested in the psychedelic space, red light is the valuation is very compelling, and you have that path towards revenues, profit. It's a near-term path, so it's not something which is always out somewhere on the horizon. It's now basically between the revenues coming from the Netherlands, the brand. So there's a lot of
interesting companies. Yeah, there are interesting companies in the cannabis space, like and good companies, by the way, like MediPharm Labs. Like if I recall, that stock chart was huge and then came down, and that was more of a MediPharm, like that was more of a pharma play. And then look at a Trulieve, which is more of a a rec play here, responsible rec play, and where will the industry be? No one has no one can predict it. I'm not wearing I can't create magic here, although we're dealing with magic truffles. It's just I'd like to think of trends and try to be predictive, without making claims and making promises. But we are working hard to achieve these goals, and that's what we're doing best.
Excellent. Okay, Todd, on that note, I want to thank you, and we're going to have you back probably next Thursday for the follow-up. We're going to have a slideshow and everything else, and hopefully we're going to have a lot of audience questions then. Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.